And the president's new threat to close the border with Mexico next week. President Trump demanding that Mexico stop illegal immigration. ABC's Stephanie Ramos has more from Washington. Good morning, Stephanie.
Eva, good morning. President Trump has threatened to close the border before, right? But this time he's giving a timetable just a week before he's set to visit the region. This morning, President Trump is threatening to close the southern border as early as next week if Mexican authorities do not block migrants from entering the U.S.
Mexico is going to have to do something, otherwise I'm closing the border.
With this month's number of border crossings nearly double than last March and no additional money for the border wall from Congress, President Trump is now ready to turn his repeated threat into action.
Mexico's tough. They can stop them, but they chose not to. Now they're going to stop them. And if they don't stop them, we're closing the border. They'll close it, and we'll keep it closed for a long time. I'm not playing games. We have no detention space, no nothing.
And he's got backup. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen supports the plan and is prepared to close ports.
I think what the president is making clear is with these numbers, if we have to close ports to take care of all of the numbers who are coming, we will do that.
Mexico fired right back. The foreign minister tweeting, Mexico does not act on the basis of threats. We are a great neighbor. Closing the border for any amount of time could have serious economic repercussions for both countries. When it closed for just 5 hours last fall, the cost was $5.3 million in lost revenues, according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. An average of $1.7 billion worth of goods cross back and forth every single day. Some lawmakers think the border move is another maneuver for the president's manufactured crisis.
President Trump declares the emergency. Now you have to justify it. And the justifications are what's causing the tragedy.
And in a stunning development overnight, the State Department says that at the president's direction, the U.S. is cutting foreign aid to El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. These three countries are the central source of migrants to the U.S., so many of them overwhelmingly women and children. Dan.
Thank you so much for your reporting this morning. Really appreciate it. So let's bring in ABC News Chief Political Analyst Matthew Dowd. Matthew, so much to talk about. Let's start with the border situation. Does the president have a case here when he says that Mexico could and should be doing more to stop the flow of migrants from Central American countries who travel up through Mexico?
Yes, I think the president does have a case to make. Obviously, what the president did was prioritize this thing wrong over the last few years, when he basically focused on the border and focused on national security when he should have been focused on the humanitarian crisis in this. But he does have a point because of this large flow of refugees coming in. If we had done something with the Central American countries where these refugees are coming from and they're traveling through Mexico to the United States, we might have been able to solve the problem. But now I think is the time. The wall isn't going to prevent this. I think working with Mexico, working with the Central American countries will. It's the only way we're going to deal with this humanitarian crisis because these folks, these refugees, are desperate for food, are desperate for shelter, and are desperate for jobs.
And they're dealing with a lot of gang violence, as I've seen firsthand. And as Stephanie Ramos just pointed out, apparently the State Department is going to cut aid to these countries. So we'll see what happens there.